Humans are inherently selfish beings. We may not show it, we may not know it, but we do love ourselves and are programmed to put our well-being above all else, by default. Whenever you talk with someone, try to count the number of times they talk about themselves, their lives, their favorites, their friends and family. Most of the time, it's really all about them. Now try to count the number of times you talk about yourself, and you'll notice that most of the time, you like to talk about you too. It's wired within us. Of course, we're individuals, so we tend to focus on what we know, control, and love. And by default, most of it is all centered on us. Again, we're selfish beings. Now it's easy to talk about things we focus on. Some things, like a really unforgettable memory, we can easily hold on to and talk about with passion. It could be a happy one or a really bad one, but if you are asked about it and you talk about it, most of the time you talk about it with a frenzy, a passion. It's an intrinsic mechanism within us. We just gravitate towards it. The challenge comes when we're asked to talk about things we don't usually focus on. In the real world, most of the things required of us are things we really aren't passionate about. Most students are forced to discuss topics they don't really care about. Most employees are forced to do a job they don't really love. And most people are forced to deal with people they don't really like. The secret to being an effective person and a happy person overall is owning that ability to express yourself and doing what you really love. But most of the time, we don't really have that liberty. If you work in the hospitality industry, for example, you need to have a really thick face. Unruly customers will shout insults at you, but you are forced to still smile at them in return. Now try to be true to yourself in that scenario and you could lose your job. Many salespeople talk about things they don't really care about. Otherwise, they won't sell anything and they won't have a job. So here's another secret, the ability to change perspectives. Changing perspectives involve focusing on things you usually don't, loving things you usually don't. It's easier said than done, however. You can't just love something you used to hate that easy. It usually takes time, but sometimes just a different approach could get you that breakthrough. It's not something they teach, it's something you learn. It's something you do, something you embrace, something you try for the first time. Most of the time, if you just give it a shot, you'll be surprised. For example, learning about quantum mechanics is such a chore. But when I looked at it from the perspectives of time travel and teleportation, my inner child giggled with excitement and I devoured YouTube video after YouTube video on how quantum mechanics can make teleportation and time travel possible. The world around us requires that we adjust to its whims. It won't adjust to ours. So the ability to change perspectives is a really important skill to learn. And again, it's not taught, it's learned. So challenge yourself. Remember that quadratic equation from high school algebra you used to sleep in class 2? Google it and you'll be surprised at the many articles and videos that explains it in a more friendly way. And therein lies a third secret, which is the meat of this video. Changing your perspective is one thing, but how do you change the perspective of other people? How do you get them to buy into you, your ideas, your product, or whatever it is you're trying to communicate? It all starts with empathy. Empathy is the act of imagining yourself in another person's situation. That alone opens up a whole new world of understanding. There are a lot of resources on the web on empathy, but basically it all boils down and cycles back to our human nature, that we are inherently selfish beings. So, if you want to be a good salesman, communicator, hospitality manager, or whatever, don't make it about you. Make it about them, and you'll be surprised. So try this exercise. Find a high school subject you used to really hate, research about it, then try to teach it to someone who also hates it. By researching about it, you'll be forced to look at it from another perspective. Then you'll be exposed to other people's perspectives about it. And after that, you will be forced to empathize with your otherwise uninterested learner and craft your communication material in a way that they would be interested in.